Hello and welcome back to Upfront with Jane. Today I'm joined by Chris Meah, the founder of School of Code, which was a vision that Chris made reality soon after getting his doctorate. The School of Code runs coding boot camps that are entirely free, and they encourage people from a range of backgrounds to get into the world of tech. With 7 years in business, they have some amazing stories from stay-at-home mums to graduates who are working in fast food, who are now team leaders in some instances, and developers for companies such as Santander and Hippo Digital, and many more in between. So Chris, massive welcome. Thank you for being on board. How are you today?
Very good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a little bit grey outside where I am. Yeah, other than looking out at grey storm clouds, I'm perfectly happy. Yeah.
Well, we'll brighten up your day today, hopefully.
Great.
So impressive start to business. What was your first experience with code personally?
So my first experience with code was probably at university. So I'd never looked into code as a kid. I played video games and FIFA and Donkey Kong and all these sorts of things, but I've never been curious about like how these put together, or some of the classic stories that you hear about kids taking apart ZX Spectrums when they were 6 years old and programming their own games. Like, wasn't interested. Well, it just wasn't on my radar really. And then I think I signed up for English Lit or Maths and Business at university, and then I saw artificial intelligence as an option. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I just watched iRobot with Will Smith. And at the time, Will Smith was still a respectable human being. And I was like, oh, I'm a little bit like Will Smith. I wonder if I could do AI. And yes, I switched to that course and then turned up. And on the first day, sort of walked in, 100 kids in the room, and they could all already code. They'd all been coding since they were, 10 years old or 6 years old. And so, yeah, my first taste was like the first day of university, really. But it got me thinking about, why is it only one type of story that makes it through? There wasn't many people on the course that were brand new to development, and the ones that were the ones that were dropping out quite early. So yeah, first taste was university, and yeah, got me thinking about what types of people are interested in tech and why.
That's brave of you to continue with it then, because I'd imagine that was a bit daunting, having come in and felt like the almost one with the least knowledge in an area.
Yeah, I didn't really, but I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was just like a whole new world. And that's one of the reasons I started the bootcamp. And one of the things you hear from boot campers is that your eyes just get opened with technology, because there's not many, the reasons I love it, it's like a blank canvas. So if I had any artistic ability whatsoever, I'd love it, because I could have a blank canvas, paint you a really nice picture here, get some emotion from you. But, whatever came into my head, I could put down on the canvas. But in the end, it's just something to look at. Whereas code, software, technology allows you to create whatever you can imagine, but it's immediately useful. Like, you could get that into the hands of people overnight and change how they live their lives. And so it's got that art feel, it's got science, like you are developing and standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. So, lots of people have developed before you, and you can use their stuff to reach the next level and go even deeper. And
interesting that you mentioned about if you'd had the creative capability, because we find within our team, being a creative agency with digital as well, that they are different skill sets. They work brilliantly together, but it's very rare that you get somebody who's a really strong creative who's also got that development expertise, but they work well together. Have you found that through the people you've worked with?
It depends how you do it. Creativity is really hard to define, isn't it? But so problem solving itself is a creative pursuit, and that's what programming is. Like, you've got something you want to achieve, you've got no idea how to do it, and you've got to imagine it from scratch. That's very different to like design creativity, where you're making something look really special or magnificent, or any of it, musical creativity. So but creativity, I think developers on the whole, or just tech in general, thrives off creativity, and we forget about that a little bit too much. Like you say, a lot of the time it seems like creative is over here somewhere and tech is here, but actually the main thing about technology, it's a team sport today, and that team has to be made up of lots of different types of personalities, attributes, and people to succeed. So Yeah,
absolutely. And trying to bear in mind the user as well, because I think that's where you need the team,
exactly,
really, because you get totally lost on your own journey.
yeah.
So whilst you were at university, did the vision for School of Code come to you at that point?
Yeah, probably. So yeah, like I said, I stayed at university a little too long, to be fair. So I did a bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And with AI, which I really liked as well, so artificial intelligence and computer science, there's so much opportunity and so much in tech that is just unlike any other industry. Jobs, money, opportunity galore. But what you also find when you're in that space is you start seeing how easily technology disrupts and how much people really should be worrying about automation in terms of they have to keep pace with the technological change that we're going through. And so that's really where School of Code came from. I got to the end of coming to the end of my PhD and started thinking, well, I can see all of these things really easily automatable. Self-driving cars, okay, they're not quite here yet. In my opinion, they should be, but over the next few years, that technology will be at a stage where it just gets implemented. And then overnight, you've got 1 million people in the UK that are just like irrelevant with their skill sets: taxi drivers, lorry drivers, delivery drivers, all different parts of that supply chain change. And so it was just the question of, well, I'd love to work on that stuff, but what happens when it lands? Like, you're not going to be able to take people that have been driving lorries for 20 years and say, okay, well, now you are managing and creating these AI systems or automation suites or whatever. Like, you need a massive national retraining scheme to make sure people don't get left behind. And so that's part of what the driver for School of Code was. I started off teaching in schools just because I wanted to try and get more people into it. So went in and taught in schools, taught a homeless coding class. And that was really good. So getting people to the level where they were making websites for local businesses. Wow. And then just wanted to ramp up the impact, really, because the way that you change people's lives is getting them into careers and getting them earning money and being able to, once you're on the career ladder in tech, it's like hockey stick growth if you want it to be. You can craft the career you want once you've got enough of the experience. So that's essentially where it comes from. Yeah, that sort of seeing how to try and bring more people in, because at the time a lot of people were saying, well, anyone can code, and a lot of people were saying, well, no, you have to be born a developer, essentially, like it's an inherent trait, and so I just wanted to put that to the test and say, well, there's a lot of talk, but like let's just do a social experiment, take a load of random people, see how quickly we can get them to the point that they are adding value to tech teams. And that's basically how the School of Code started. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. And actually, like you said, looking at the bigger picture, it's embracing that change, because I do think there's a fear factor around we don't want that to happen because we'll ultimately be out of jobs. So preempting that and being prepared and looking at that change and wanting to move forward.
Yeah, you cannot stop the rise of a technology advance. Like if you try and stop it, somebody else will implement it and then you're irrelevant anyway. So the best you can do is stay ahead or on pace, at pace, and really help shape it. And that's the other side of it. So there's the sort of the pessimistic view of this cliff edge of automation that's coming for most people's jobs or digitization. But then the other angle is, like we were saying, tech, you can shape the world. Like, the world runs off software, and if you have the power to create software, you've got the power to shape the world how you want to see it, and that's a really different level of empowerment and creativity and fulfillment and challenge and prosperity, and the whole career is very different to what I've seen in other industries. So having people able to take advantage of that. No, you carry on.
Is there anyone, I was just wondering, that's been your sort of inspiration? Is there anyone who, as you've been in code, was there anybody who inspired you to get into tech? I know it was a course that you'd seen, but throughout your career, there might be a few people, or is it books, or where do you get your inspiration, your constant learning from?
I think there's been a ton of people that have helped School of Code and me over the years, especially getting it started. In terms of inspiration, I mean, probably my family, to be honest. Like, I know that's a boring answer,
No.
but like my mum and dad. I'm one of 7 kids, so I got 6 brothers and sisters, and everyone's very loud and entrepreneurial, but they're all very different in their own ways. So, you know, I've got 4 sisters, 2 brothers, and we're mixed race as well, so we're all different, look different, and different colours, and yeah, so really vibrant, like loads of different attitudes, loads of different personalities. But many of us actually run our own businesses or help in, you know, entrepreneurial pursuits. So I think we get that from our mum and dad, really.
You've had to be confident to shout out to be heard, I'd imagine, amongst them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can't be shy in a family of 7 children.
Yeah, not with the sisters I've got either.
No, definitely not. Sounds like a lot of bosses there. I imagine the girls are definitely the bosses.
Yeah.
So as a business then, how did you go about starting it? Was it you on your own? Have you got any?
I had a co-founder, Bish, who I'd started the School of Code as an idea, and then I went down to London for an event, stayed on his couch, told him about what he was doing, and then pretty much the week after he'd quit his job, and he was like, "I'm in," and I was like, "Cool, let's do it." So yeah, and we started really trying to, as I said, like teach in schools and get kids learning. And so we made this platform that is basically a game that allows kids to code. So you make your own little, I'll show you actually, like these little characters here. So this is mine. There you go, out of Lego. But those characters are made on our platform from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you code the character yourself. And so we put that platform into schools and had something like 250,000 kids use it, which was really good. But then I really wanted to like take the direction of getting people into jobs because there was a lot of support in schools. And to be honest, kids are going to be like native digitally, like they really are going to be able to come into the workforce and have had way more exposure to code. And even though in schools it's not quite where we would think it needs to be, like there is exposure. So the bigger problem for me was, well, what about the people that have had like 20-year careers? They're going to have to work for another 20 years, and the ground shifts beneath their feet. Or the people that did a degree and were missold the dream of like, oh, you do a degree, your life's sorted, and then they're like, what do I do next? Or, you know, people coming out of school and they're not quite finding their feet. So for me, it was the career transition. Because the days of sort of like being trained in something and then doing it for the rest of your life are over. You know, you need to constantly have that lifelong learning that everyone talks about, and then reinvent yourself and keep your skills up to date. And so that's what the School of Code sort of turned into, the accelerator for people to do that.
I think everything you've saying is totally true. It's not like you say, it used to be you almost got credit for being at a company for 30 years, whereas now actually jobs change, people reinvent themselves, and that's a positive. And I don't think you would look at a CV now and think that it's a bad thing that people have had that different experience and learned from different places. And I think what you've talked about in individuals is equally as important in companies, that you're ever evolving, being open to change, and not...
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, every company now is a tech company, whether they know it or not. Because if you want any sort of scale, that's what technology is there for, to scale, to automate, to have that impact. And so, yeah, it's not just like tech as a classic like industry, it's all industries, and needs constant reinvention. And even people that have been in the same job, if your job title is the same as it was 20 years ago, you've still probably experienced a massive shift in what your day-to-day responsibilities and abilities have to be, and the skills that are required. So, and that's going to only accelerate, you know, so, yeah.
So day one, starting the business, what did you do?
Day one, I can't remember actually. I think it seems a long time ago. It was a long time, and I had a lot less wrinkles at that point. So, I think me and my, I sort of went down to this event in London, spoke to Bish, and Bish came on as a co-founder. And so we just got started, really just thinking like, well, how can we help get people into tech? And so like started in schools, because I really love teaching people with especially with this platform we had, it was really fun to go into the schools and sort of get the kids really working with code. Because what happens a lot in schools is the teachers are really scared of code because that's not what they've been trained in, and it's very hard to really be proficient in without dedicating a lot of time to it. And so what happens in schools is they often have drag and drop sort of coding, like which teaches you the logical thinking. But the problem with that is there's this sort of point you get to where you're then ready to take the next step as a student who likes it, and there's nowhere to go, there's no help, because the written code is a bit nerve-wracking to go on as a curriculum. So took this platform into schools, just started teaching kids everything from 5-year-olds all the way up to 18 plus in universities and all sorts of backgrounds, and really enjoyed that. And that sort of kick-started, well, how do we get more impact with this, and that's where we are today.
And so obviously you're a business, you employ a team of 25 people. How is the business funded then? So you offer, as far as I'm aware, the courses are free. So what's the business structure? How do you make it?
Very good. Very, very good. So, I mean, the courses were always going to be free because the aim here is to remove the barriers. So there's two ways we do that. Make the courses free so that anyone can apply, money isn't a barrier, and they never have to have seen a line of code before as well. So that's really different to a lot of, especially boot camps or universities, where you need a certain level of experience to get in or prior knowledge. But the main barrier as well is, boot camps cost anywhere around the sort of £10,000 mark. And again, if you feel like the future is the skills, it seems a bit trite to put a toll bridge in between and say, well, you need 10 grand to pass go. So what we wanted to do is make it work for free. And really, if you analyze that, the main beneficiaries of talent are employers. That's the biggest bottleneck to any company's growth in tech. Finance is always one, but in tech, it's usually not the main factor, to be honest. The biggest bottleneck is talent. And so if you have talent that can add value to companies will pay. They use recruitment companies all the time, even though most of them would prefer not to. And that is because there's a real scarcity of this talent. And so in our heads, if I backed myself to get people to a level where they could add value to companies, then companies would pay. And luckily that turned out to be the case. So we're getting people to the level where even though they can hire from university for free or other boot camps for free, they're willing to come on board with School of Code because we're taking people from scratch and training them up. They're seeing that real dedication from people that are willing to change their lives, but they're also learning how to really operate in a tech company. School of Code is really like their first job in tech. And we train them in exactly what they're going to be doing, and learning the rituals and how to communicate in teams and how to work with different types of people. And so they're really ready to add value when they go to those companies, and so they pay. And then the other half, sorry, I'm going on here. And then the other half of the revenue comes from, actually lately we've had a really good relationship built up with the government, first through the West Midlands Combined Authority, which is where I'm from. And they started supporting the course after sort of boot camp 3. And then actually we've piloted that now to a level where we're working with the DFE to scale nationally. So there's a boot camp scheme that has been rolled out nationally, and we're now in 7 regions of the country, and hoping to be in every region of the country before the end of the year, so that it doesn't matter where you live, you can access the School of Code and we can help you get into your tech career.
So as an employer, I recognise that I've got a gap, a skills gap. Do they choose the people? Have they kind of got, so they would meet candidates, if you like, and they're the ones that they train? Is it almost like an apprenticeship, but School of Code?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to think about it. So there's really a couple of things that we embed in the course in terms of how we operate with industry. So the first thing is we want to be the industry boot camp, and are really serious about it should feel like their first job in tech. So it's less like classroom. I mean, School of Code isn't the best name for it. I just really like the name, but it's less school and more, just workplace. It's a team of people coming together under pressure to learn something and build some stuff. And so companies get involved all the way through guest lectures. Everyone on the course has an individual mentor, a one-to-one mentor in industry. So they provide mentorship. They provide projects for the boot campers to execute and present back or pitch back. And then at the very end, the last 4 weeks of the course is all one team project. So people will be in teams of about 6 completing these projects. And then they will present back their projects in front of a room full of employers, and employers will then see who they feel like is a good match for their company. Now we're sort of doing about 200 people a quarter, and so there's a constant pipeline of talent to hire from, whereas in the early days I was sort of running one a year, and because doing all the applications and then the teaching and the recruitment, and there was only sort of 20 people on a cohort. So although companies were really engaged, they couldn't rely on it as a talent source. Whereas now there's always somebody to be interviewing, hiring, and a big pool of really diverse talent. So the range of people that we bring through is just like, there's no comparison in terms of any other course or educational route that I've seen. And so that's a really distinctive, unique selling point, because that's transformational talent that you wouldn't have access to anywhere else. And we've really wrapped it around this need for technology skills and teamwork.
Fantastic. So is it roughly 12 weeks then that you have people for?
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
16 weeks. And
wow.
Big commitment, like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And we've managed to work with the government so that, in the early days, that was a massive risk for people financially anyway, but there was also no support for them. So, off the pilot course, there was, we were getting to the end and there was a couple of people at risk of, evictions, and, we were really bums on seats. Luckily, we managed to get people into jobs, but, now actually throughout the duration of the course, the DFE have been able to make it so that people can access universal credit if they're eligible for it, and so that really helps more people access the course who otherwise would really struggle.
So you've had to push for that. It's a bit of a change in thinking, really, isn't it? That this is valuable time, that at the end of it, they're going to be more valuable to everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. And the results speak, but we always say I'm biased. Everyone who comes through is like the best thing since sliced bread, if you ask me. But the proof is in the pudding for us. So with employer partners, there's never an obligation to hire. The only time you would pay is when you actually choose to hire someone. Up until then, it's completely free. You can just come and interview and get to know people, or just come and get involved. So the proof is really in the pudding, and companies are the best judges of who fits their needs. And also the boot campers don't have to accept offers. They can court multiple companies, or, we want it to be the right match for both boot camper and company to de-risk the employment for both parties.
I imagine there's a lot of companies who could benefit from your skills to upskill a team that they've already got, or perhaps there's teams where their roles are changing, and actually this 16-week program, is that something that you've ever accommodated?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of retraining sort of commercial courses for companies. And it slots in really well. Our main focus is the free boot camp, because that's just our mission. But every so often we will run for companies like a custom course. We do that sort of corporate training as well, which goes really well and just feeds more people into that community that we're building, which is just such a magical place. We've got so many mentors and alumni and boot campers, and they're all supportive, and that's the best thing about the company, really. Like, the community around it is amazing.
It must be so rewarding for you to see all those individual stories of people who literally their life has changed, hasn't it? Within that, 16 weeks can go in a blink of an eye, but actually this can be such a big life changer for them. Are there any in particular stories that spring to mind of people that you keep in touch with, or ones that you've seen just how it's changed their life?
Yeah, it is. It's always a good reminder, because it's really hard. It's hard what we try and do, like 9 to 5, 16 weeks, constantly, trying to get people through, and the team do a really great job. But we have these boot camper stories in our weekly team meetings that, people come back and give us, their story or what's happened since, and it always puts a massive smile on everyone's face, because that's the reason we do it. I couldn't pick. Let me pick some random stories, but like honestly, anyone that's come through the course, we're really proud of. Like they've all got completely different stories. You know, you've got a 50-50 gender split, age range of 18 to 60, demographics matching the local populations, but the backgrounds of people is just so diverse. You've got like musicians and artists, probation officers, personal trainers, Zumba instructors, volcanologists, return to work parents, sheep shearers, air hostesses, barbers, you know, you name it, and they sort of come through the course. And so some of those have got really, you know, incredible journeys that they've been through, and you know, School of Code is just helping them on the next step in that journey. So yeah, there's loads of people that come to mind. Olivia was a theatre director, you know, staging sort of offbeat plays, and you know, obviously that over the last couple of years has really been hit anyway. So there'll be a lot of people that resonate with that sort of background, and never thought she'd be in tech. And then after 16 weeks, she came to us, got a job at Santander, and is now helping, you know, drive forwards their user experience and user interface design team. And yeah, so lots of great stories like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And have you had any of the people that you've put through the course come back to interview candidates for their own teams? Does that happen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like quite a lot. That seems to be how it goes. Like people accelerate their journey, so they actually reach senior much quicker than industry standard, and so they'll be coming back and hiring teams and shaping teams. So we've got a lad called Scott who was 18 on the very first boot camp, and now he's actually helping lead teams in a company called Amigo, and they've hired a massive number of people through us, actually, for the size of the company. I think it's about like half of their tech team have come through School of Code, and yeah, that's a really great story. And also the people coming back, so people stay on and come back to help teach as well, because they want to give back. We've got some great stories like you know, Liz Kay was a boot camper who now leads our I call her Liz Kay, her name's Liz, but we call her Liz Kay internally. She leads our boot camps, so she's been, you know, been through the process and now training people herself. We've got Jordan, who was a forklift driver before, and now he you know, after 16 weeks is helping train people to become developers. We've got a whole team of stories really, which is amazing.
And how has your role changed then since you started the business? I'd imagine you were very hands-on, doing a lot of the training, a lot of the, well, everything really. You wear every hat when you start a business. And you built up your own team to allow you to focus on running the business rather than being in the business more lately. Yeah,
and it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm sure I mess more things up than I fix, mainly with the team. So, you know, they're usually telling me to stay out of things. And that's a really good thing. So it's a weird transition, especially with something so you're so emotionally invested in. So I would never advise somebody to start their own business. And I actually stopped getting invited into schools to speak about it, because I was just telling people not to start their own business, because especially if you're starting it for emotional, it's a really hard thing to do. You're going to be pushed to your maximum, especially if you're emotionally attached to the mission as well. You're not going to want to see that fail. And one of the key things in business is like failure is inevitable, really. So you've got to be really, you know, that's why sometimes being money motivated is much easier in business, because it's just, you'll do whatever makes money. If you're really fixed on the particular problem, you're just going to see that out to the end. And so I always say to people, look, there's way easier ways of, you know, having a nice life, and you know, go get paid to do it for someone else. And if people still want to do their own business, they are the right people to do it. It's a big sacrifice, and they're gonna, you know, push through it. But I'm against the grain on that. I think most people try and encourage entrepreneurship. I'd be a hypocrite, because it's really hard to start something. So yeah, only if you really want to do it should you jump at it. I
don't think anybody would employ you now, though, unfortunately. You've crossed that line.
I don't think anyone would have employed me anyway. So
well, yeah, I came to that conclusion. So yeah, don't do it, guys. Just
exactly.
Get into code. So within having the team, obviously, it's taken some of the pressure off. They run the business for you. But what's been your challenge then, really, with sort of motivating, keeping the team, growing the team, sticking with the change? And what would you say your challenges have been?
My challenges, I think, well, I mean, everyone's had the challenge of the pandemic and COVID, and I think that was a big thing, especially on reflection. You know, we were such an in-person company, and I was a bit of a Luddite because I was always saying we will never be online because you just can't replicate this magic. You know, like you'd walk into the School of Code and it'd feel like you were in a bar, or you know, people would be sat around tables collaborating, wheeling round, jumping on laptops, problem solving. There'd be a hubbub about the place. And if you've ever walked into like a computer science lab at university or something, or any sort of typical coding scenario, it's usually like headphones on, nobody talking, like complete silence. So you know, that magic of bringing all those different types of people together, just the fun that we were having, I was like, you can't replicate it. And then we had to go, you know, remote. And actually, I think we carried across most of the benefits of being in person really well into Zoom. You know, like everyone's in teams and pairs all the way through the course. Well, that can happen in breakout rooms, and you get those connections built and the bonds made. And so we actually translated a load of it across, which proved me wrong. But I think, you know, having to cope with that remoteness when you've been so in person, that was a big shift for me and the team. So that's been a real challenge. And I think most people are still, if they're honest with themselves, confused about what to do. Should they be back? Should they be remote? I mean, we're mainly remote. We've still had an office for the whole time, but the whole team will work from home unless you want to go in. But to say, I can't say we've like mastered exactly how that works.
Yeah.
Like you just do it and figure it out and stay open to what can work and what can't.
So what about your people on the course now? Are they all working remotely? You've not gone back to bringing them together yet?
Yeah, so the course is almost completely remote. We're going to go for this blended thing where we do meetups and people meet in person, because for a couple of years now, you know, the people on the course, they've built these really strong bonds and then they never actually meet during the course. And it's been really fun when we have these little meetups after and everyone figures out how tall they are. And, you know, it's, you know, these people that you really know intimately, you just don't, you know, you've never seen in real life. And it's, you know, you've been through these real forming, you know, relationships and tribulations with them. So
interesting though, how quite often things that start as a challenge become your opportunity, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And we've scaled now to help people from around the country much quicker than we would have if we actually would have had to physically you know, train each of them in person. So
and more cost effectively, you're not opening up offices across the So
big opportunity.
You've stuck to your values and embraced the change.
yeah, exactly.
So you've mentioned a few companies that you're supporting or who are supporting the School of Code and in turn are benefiting from your services. How have they found out about you? Have you got a team that are contacting businesses on the new business sort of drive, or is the name growing? What's your introduction there?
Yeah, so, well, it all started from sort of the centre of Birmingham, and we grew this really great community of supporters, companies, partners, and really from there, it's just grown and grown and grown. The reputation, the fact that people are going in and really transforming cultures and companies and really adding a lot of value. Yeah, we've got a really good connection across the West Midlands, especially. And now what we're trying to do is grow that out to other regions, like I was saying. And so we've got a partnerships team. So we've got some great people in our partnerships team that are just out there trying to speak to companies. And really what we're trying to see is, are they a good place for junior talent to start their careers, for people to land? Do they share our sort of values? And are they interested in building something which is, well, brand new, really? Like this is something that hasn't existed before. Apart from, if you're a big corporate, potentially you've got grad schemes or something like that, and you can stick people in for 2 years and they come back out and then you can have them add value then. But most companies, especially small, medium enterprises, you need to add value from sort of month one, if not day one, because, you know, we're just tighter resourced. And so that's really the opportunity for people to de-risk that employment and say, actually, if I get involved with School of Code and I can help shape and witness people's journeys and shape the curriculum and get involved, actually, when I come to hire, I know that person is ready-made to slot into my team. Yes, they've only been doing for 16 weeks and they've got a load of holes in their knowledge, but they're bringing an energy, a desire, and skills that can help drive us forward. And so, yeah, the partnerships team are out all day, every day, just meeting new companies and seeing if they want to join what we're trying to build.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. And great that you've got big companies on board with it already, and actually it can only grow then, can't it? Because they will have experienced the benefit of it. And like you say, I think it is only 16 weeks, but actually probably, I'd imagine, sorry to say it, but what people do in 3 years in a degree, they probably do more in 16 weeks in a 9 till 5 course.
Yeah, almost certainly. I mean, that's what we've seen, and it sounds unbelievable, but as we said, the proof is in the pudding, and people are getting hired into postgraduate level positions when they can hire graduates for free. And so, yeah, I think university is great. I loved it, but what it isn't is a job factory. It's a academic research institution, and they've sort of missold themselves sometimes as come here to get a job, because there's a load of money attached to that. A lot of vice chancellors want to raise that revenue, and that seems like a good way to do it. But yeah, I think people are waking up actually, and you don't need to go to university. It's often irrelevant to most of the jobs that you're going to be going into. So these really short, intensive conversion transformational courses are I think the future of how people are going to get ready for positions in industry.
Absolutely. And I think actually you work to a deadline, don't you? If you're given a week to do something, you'll take a week. If you're given a day to do something, you'll do it in a day. So you can achieve a lot in 16 weeks when you're on a tight deadline, and that's what you're working towards. And actually that's more reflective of the real world, isn't it, as well, that people are going to be entering into. I remember when I thought my deadlines were tight at uni, and then I was like, okay, this is like this 6-week project is a day's work in reality.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's next for you then? It's we're about to approach the Jubilee Weekend. Are you going to take some time off? Are you working through?
No, the whole team will be taking some time off. I think just nice. Hopefully it's nice weather, just relaxing, and coming back refreshed for Monday. So a nice long weekend. And then for us, it's back. We've got a course on at the moment with 150 odd people on it. And we've got a load of people ready to be hired from the last course that's recently finished as well. So our main focus at the moment is, making sure there's a transformational experience on the course for those on it, and making sure there's job opportunities and moving people into jobs when they're in our recruitment process.
Brilliant. And then just one thing I picked up on, you talked about companies that you support, and I'd imagine it's a two-way thing, because they're interviewing you to see if you're right for them. But one thing I picked up on is you mentioned about seeing if values align. And are there particular companies that you work with, or businesses that you would like to work with that you think would be a good fit for School of Code?
Yeah, so well, it's interesting because it's a vague thing, isn't it, to say values align. But for us, I mean, we work with all types of companies, and that's really good for us. So we work with corporates like Santander, The Economist, BAE, like really big companies, and everything all the way down to like small one-person companies hiring the first 1 or 2 people. We work with a company called Wise, who again have hired umpteen developers through us as a scale up. So I think there were only 10 people when they started hiring, and now they're like 80 or even more now. So yeah, really big growth trajectory companies, small companies, large companies. And for us, that's really good because it shows that we're hitting the mark with the quality of talent that we're putting out. So it's really about, are they companies that want to bring on junior to mid talent? Are they places that adopt that sort of mindset of growing talent that is ready to start their careers? People are coming from careers that they've got so many transferable skills, and then we layer in the tech talent aspect of that and the teamwork aspect of the agile process. So companies that are really looking for that tech talent and that diverse pipeline of tech talent, they're the ones that we want to be speaking to and find value in hiring from us as well.
Yeah, exciting. It's fantastic. So if people are listening today or watching today and want to know more, where can they find out about you? How can they who should they get in touch with? Where should they follow? Can you point us in the direction of where to go?
Yeah, if you go to schoolofcode.co.uk, that's the website. It will be being redone as it is always. But yeah, like that's where most of the information is. You can reach us on any social media. We've got a really good marketing team and social media team that look after that. So that's probably the easiest way, or just email info@schoolofcode.co.uk. And yeah, one of the team can help navigate and see how we can support you.
Amazing. So you're not short of developers then to sort your own website?
No, we try and get the boot campers to make it each time.
Absolutely reinvent it. That's fantastic. Amazing. Well, it's been fascinating. I've absolutely loved hearing more. I think it's a great business, really inspiring. I think you did make the right choice in going into business, and congratulations. I look forward to seeing what's next and how you continue to grow. Yeah,
at least somebody thinks I made the right choice. So that's validated me. Thanks. And yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot for your time.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Jane. Thanks.
Thank you.